leading in our role. So how do we lead in our role? This is one of the things that I think everybody is really has been waiting for, some of the meat and potatoes and stuff here. You know, it's all great. We talk about all this other, you know, all these ideas, all this environment, all this thought process, all this whatever other stuff. But Mike, shut the heck up and tell me what the heck I'm supposed to do so we can actually get some progress here. How can we lead in our role? How can we do that? So, when we're looking at leading others, there are two different types of ways that individuals lead others, right? There's the first type is power, leading through power. Okay, what does it mean, guys, to lead through power? What do you guys think? Is everybody's taking a bite? Always ask the question when everybody's taking a bite, every single time. What are some examples of leading through power?
Through your position in
Yeah.
the company or title.
Absolutely, yeah. Leading in through your title, simply because people have to respect you, right? They have to do something. They have to listen to you because that's where you are, right? So leading through power. What thoughts and images come to your mind when you think of people who are leading through power? Are they positive thoughts or negative thoughts? A little of both. Why?
Because sometimes I think decisions are not necessarily thought through. It's just, I was told it needs to be done, you just need to do it, and, don't want any questions.
Exactly. Exactly. You do this because I have spoken. Right. Therefore, it is the right decision. Yeah, no, I think, and when you go back to the idea of just having it based on the title, I think that that's very true, and that can sometimes spur some negative reactions when people just expect the, they expect the reverence, right. or they expect that type of idea. So the concept, right? The concept of leading through power, as it's related to leadership, is it's part of the influence process. When people are respected and viewed as having power, positive or negatively, they can completely 100% have more influence on other individuals. And when we think about what comes to mind, there are times. Has anybody ever felt like they've been manipulated in a work environment before? Yeah, of course, absolutely. How did that happen, Artie?
Well,
without getting yourself in too much trouble.
You're manipulated based on the fact that you have an individual, like you said, he's leading through power, and he's trying to lead a group that may have information that's vital to him. And when that happens, there's a good and a bad.
Yep.
You can let it fail, but at the same time, the whole group fails.
You are absolutely right. Yeah, you are absolutely right.
Keeping him informed, he or she, of the pros and cons.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, by leading through power, there's a fake assumption that the individual that has the power seems to feel that he has all the answers, he or she has all the answers.
Interesting.
And they don't.
Interesting. So, individuals who are perceived as having the power, and a lot of times when they're leading through power or leading through leverage, they think they have all the right answers. They think, because of course their perspective is the only perspective that's really ever going to be the one that makes any sense, right? I've been doing this for 20 years, or I've been in this position for so long, or you haven't let me do this for the past 10 years, and now I'm here, and now I'm going to do what I want because I know better than you. There's a lot of those types of scenarios that come up, and the idea of power is oftentimes a negative term. It's oftentimes something that we think of along with these other adjectives of deception and coercion. Coercion's another thing. Anybody ever feel like there's that that top group of 2 or 3 different executives who, no matter what, things are going to go their way. No matter what, it's going to be their decision. It doesn't really matter, right? Those types of things. Those people have the power, right? So when power is used in healthy and productive ways, it can produce positive results, though, right? That's what we talked about before. Fire. is the exact same thing. It can be positive or negative. It can destroy or it can save your life. Power is the same way. Influence is the same way. When it's used in healthy and productive ways, it can produce positive results, right? So, how would you define power? When you have leadership or you have power, how would you define it? What does that mean, right? So, definition of power. Power is the capacity or the potential to influence. The capacity or the potential to influence. If you have power, you have the ability to be able to do that. People have power when they have the ability to affect others' beliefs. Is it powerful to have the opportunity and have a platform to be able to provide information to a large group of people at one time? Information that they are captive in hearing. Is that a powerful tool to have? Absolutely. Do people use those tools on a national level and on a national basis to influence large groups of people?
Yes.
Absolutely they do. Is it right? Sometimes. Is it wrong? Most times. Right? On either side, it doesn't matter, it's wrong. Right? But people have power when they have that ability to affect others and influence others in a major, major, major way. And that doesn't necessarily always mean title, like Jessica was talking about earlier. Jessica has a tremendous amount of power in her organization regardless if she's in a management spot or not, because people are going to her as a point of influence. She's a person that people trust. She's a person that can tell people and share with people positive ways to enact in this environment, and that is only going to continue to increase her stock as an employee at that company. Okay, so she has power because she has influence, whether she has the title or not, right? So leadership and power. Leadership and power. The concept of power is related to leadership because it is part of the influence process. The concept of power is related to leadership because it's part of the influence process. Power directly relates to a leader's ability to influence change. Without the effective use of power, things just can't get done. So think of power again in terms of fire. It can be positive or it can be negative, right? Without fire, you cannot warm things. It's what it is. It's the way it works. Without power, you cannot get things done. With fire, you can destroy things, right? With power, you can completely tear down an organization or somebody's ego, right? Somebody's ego, somebody's self-worth, which is a lot of times even worse, right? You start using that power in ways that benefit you instead of benefit the organization, then we move away from that level 5 leadership. We move away from the idea of creating this environment that allows what we want to unfold naturally because we've done such a good job as a leader at creating what it is that we want to create. And we've created this spot that allows individuals to be able to perform at their highest level, at their highest capability, right? And continue to follow through, right? So we need to be able to have that type of power. We need to be able to have the energy to make things happen. Power is energy. Action, power, it's energy. It's all related together, right? We can start to act, and as we start to act, what will happen is those little actions will start to add up. A mentor of mine and an event trainer, a speaker trainer, his name is Wesley Gu. Awesome dude. He's like this little, he's a mentor of so many different people. He's like a little Yoda walking around. He's fantastic. And he always has this phrase, and he says, a ton of feathers still weighs a ton.
Right.
A ton of feathers still weighs a ton, right? And individually, the thing is not that big of a deal, right? Individually, that one action, that one bit of energy is not that big of a deal. But when you back that action up on top of another action, and on top of another action, on top of another action, on top of another action, what happens is ultimately it becomes this big snowball effect. And you got a ton of feathers that are moving in a certain direction. But that direction can either be forward or backward. It can also go backward. And your responses, your actions as leaders is what affect that. And the power that you have comes as a result of those little actions and those little things that you do. Are you acting to create a better environment so that people are viewing you in a way where they want to do something instead of feeling like they have to do something because of your title? What are the actions that you're taking to create that type of stuff, to have that power? Without power, leaders and their organizations are rendered ineffective. I think that's a pretty accurate statement, right? You know, I mean, if you, a lot of times, the most effective companies have the most power to influence change. Apple, Tesla, Microsoft, Facebook. Everybody's mad about Facebook for whatever reason, for this or for that, and the reason they're mad about Facebook is because they think Facebook has too much power to influence. There's too many ways for people to be able to go on and say things and do things, and here I am on Facebook Live. Welcome, I see comments. Thank you. Appreciate you guys being here. And here I am on Facebook Live, right? Because there's also ways to use that influence in a positive way, to project awesome information so that people can hear it, so that they can learn, so that they can grow, right? So there's different sides to the coin. But they have amazing amounts of power. Facebook does have amazing amounts of power, don't they? Mark Zuckerberg has amazing amounts of power. He changes his platform, everybody from the ages of 16 to 45 riots. Right? Because it's not the same as it used to be. I don't know what to do, right? Oh my gosh, I can't say this anymore. I can't do this. How come my picture that I thought was funny but some other people thought was offensive got taken down? All these things, right? There's a tremendous amount of power there. Right. Tremendous amount of power. And that power transitions into influence, right? So what are the types of power? What are the types of power? This goes back to the idea of leverage too, right? The idea of things that we have. We have reward power. We have the ability to be able to grant a reward. A lot of times as managers, we're in that scenario where we have the ability to be able to grant a reward. You know, if you guys do this or you meet this goal, we're going to take next Friday off or whatever it is. Or we're going to, you know, order in B-dubs or pizza or whatever, right? We're going to have this reward if you guys achieve this. Hey, if you meet these metrics throughout the course of this quarter, that's going to put you in line for a great raise. It's going to put you in line for a great bump, a promotion, whatever it is. Coercive power, the ability to take away or punish. Guys, if we can't get this project done by next week Friday, we're going to have to reschedule the lunch or whatever it is. We're not going to be able to go out and do our team thing. We're not going to be able to do this. This can also be, that was sort of a positive example of that at least incorporated the team. This can also be like, hey, if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to go on vacation for those days that you requested, right? If you don't do this, I'm not going to recommend you for that next step. I'm not going to recommend you for that next bump, right? Reverent power or referent power. This stems from personal characteristics. Some individuals will assign a position of power to an individual because of their personal characteristics. They respect them so much based on their experience, based on their level of leadership. One of the things I know about Nick is what he used to do in the past, right? He used to serve in the military, right? And he shared this with us in management. He used in national security, national defense, right?
Yes.
Because he's done that, I have a certain amount of respect for that man that will never go away just because of his past experience. And that's an amazing thing. Thank you for your service, sir. Very much appreciate that. Absolutely. But that's what I'm referring to with that. Because of his past experience, because of what he's done in the past, he has I will show him that reverence because of that. Right? That's what I'm referring to by that. Legitimate power, this comes from the role or the title, like I think Rita said, right? The position and power is what sometimes defines that. Expert power, this comes from a knowledge and a skill. Are there people on your teams who are just so awesome at that one thing, right? Amir, you probably have inspectors who are much better at picking out foundation issues in certain areas than other inspectors who are great at HVAC, right? Or carbon monoxide or radon or whatever the situation may be. You have different individuals when you know the scope of a project that you're going to send out there and give them the power to be able to do that. It's important to understand that in your organization. It's also important to understand how people view you. What is your expert power? What is the thing that sets you apart and adds all that value, right? And then information power. This is similar to expert power, but it differs in source, right? This is that individual who just knows everything about everything for like no particular reason, right? They're just the person like, yeah, I don't know, just go ask John. He's like Uncle Google, right? He just knows everything, right? So it's that person there. So these are the different types of power that we're looking at, and we can go through that as we're looking in the leading of my role. It's on the first page there, written down. If you guys were taking notes, all this stuff is right there for you. And then Now, let's get into some discussion. What do you guys think is the most effective source of power or most motivating source of power, and which one is the least motivating or least effective source of power? This may be a subjective thing, so if you guys have different answers, it's okay. But what do you guys, for you personally, what do you feel is the most rewarding and most motivating source of power, and which is the most discouraging source of power?
I would say reward power is the
Okay.
most, yeah,
Most rewarding.
most rewarding.
Okay. And that's the most effective for you usually, is knowing that there's going to be something on the end, on the other side of doing this work, that's going to make it worthwhile.
Yes, yes.
Perfect.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. I think, Rachel, you're going to say the same thing. Say the same thing. Perfect. So what about? Does anybody else have one that for them is more effective than others? Yes, Miss.
I would say expert power.
Expert power.
Because it's almost inspirational to learn from someone who has a specialty in specific skill
Yeah.
or subject. So
I would agree.
expert power is very influential, I think.
I would agree, 100%, 100%. Especially probably in, obviously in certain verticals and certain industries, those types of things are extremely important. And we all respond differently, right? And we all understand things differently. And so it's cool that you know that about yourself. Hopefully, your boss knows that about you too, so that they can put you in scenarios where you're really truly learning and gathering that type of stuff. So that's awesome. Thank you. Yes, Amir.
I want to add to expert power. Anybody who has that power should know how to fish in the right water.
Amen. Amen to that.
I'm going to give you an example. So if I have some CAD work to do, I have 50 inspectors, I should know who should I go
Mhm.
get it done in a short amount of time.
Exactly. I agree. And that's a great point. As we talk about self-awareness and we talk about what we know our strengths are and what we know our weaknesses are, and I think that's where Amir was going. In terms of expert power, be the expert on yourself. Be the expert on what you know, right? If he has 15 different things to put into a CAD machine or CAD program, and he's got 15 different reports to do, and he has somebody who's super inefficient in doing those reports, that's a support person, he's not going to ask them to help him organize all those reports. That's a bad idea. He also might not be the person to do that himself, right? So he needs to know and be aware not just of his teammates and of his subordinates, but also of himself and the other people in the organization and how he relates to them, what he can do, what he can't do, and who can do it better than him, which is fantastic. So that's good. Which of these? Oh yeah, Artie.
I like the informational power because
Yes, sir.
to me it seems like it encompasses everything.
Mhm.
The more you know about your area, your people, history, present, past,
Yep.
and knowing where you can go and get information, motivate your people at, to me it seems like knowledge is power.
Absolutely. It absolutely is.
And having that, knowing how to use it and pull sources in from all different aspects gives you a command of the situation.
I would agree with you 100%. Henry Ford is famous for saying something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing very loosely because I don't remember the quote, so please bear with me. But saying something to the effect of, someone had asked, how have you built this entire global conglomerate? You don't seem like the smartest person in the world, right? And he said, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I don't need to be the smartest person in the world because you see this button? I have this button and I push this button. All the smartest people in the world, they come running to me so I can ask them the question, right? It's kind of what you were getting at there, right? You need to have the resources to be able to get the information. Knowing where to go to get that, I think you're right. It gives you an incredible amount of power, an incredible amount of opportunity, and it's also attractive. To be around somebody who knows the person who knows the person. Right, exactly. So that's a cool thing. I like that. Awesome. So the sources of power, right? Sources of power: expertise, relevant knowledge and skills, track record, right? Attractiveness, effort. Sources of positional power. Positional versus personal. Positional power, formal authority. This is the title. The relevance, the relationship between the task and the organization, right? Different objectives, centrality, autonomy, position in key networks, visibility. Visibility, that's another thing. Is somebody always put in the company eyes? Somebody always put in the department eyes? Somebody always put out there as the golden child of whatever? That person has power. That person has a source of power. They're being pushed out there. They're being put into a position of power as a result of the company, as a result of the corporation. Now, the personal power, that's where we get back into some of the skills and things that we can control, and we can also attempt to project in our circle of influence that will allow us to continue to grow that circle of influence. People don't care so much about positional power unless they feel like they're going to get in trouble. Right? How many people can relate to that? You don't care so much about positional power unless you feel you're going to get in trouble. But if there's a leader in your organization, maybe not even in your department, that you know behaves differently, and you can see it. They have that level 5 aura. They have that leadership aura. You want to be around them. You want to be on their team. You hope you get picked by that person. You hope LeBron James picks you, right? You want that. You know what I'm saying? And so you want to be on that, and they have that personal power. LeBron James didn't get the power and the status because the Cleveland Cavaliers drafted him. I promise you that. Right? It's Ohio. Nobody likes Ohio. We're all Michigan fans, right? Come on. Let's go blue. Hopefully somebody's not an Ohio State grad. So, sorry, Facebook Live. But it was his personal aura. It was his personal spirit. It was people wanted to be around him because he was a leader, because he had the expertise and the track record, and put in the effort. He put in the effort. The late, great Kobe Bryant put in the effort to be the best basketball player in the world. The best basketball player in the world. And he was willing to work harder than you were to be out there. He was willing to spend more hours in the gym than anybody to be able to be a better player. He was willing to master his craft to be the best possible player. And it's the same as all the greats in every specific area, right? Those individuals, they have that personal power because of the things that they can control, because of the things that they choose to put in the forefront, and the things that they choose about themselves to develop and say, this is going to be the above-the-line behavior for me no matter what. These are the things that I'm going to do. I am going to make sure that I have relevant knowledge and skills, relevant expertise. I'm going to attribute to others. I'm going to find the attributes of others and find appealing things to identify with them with. I'm going to try to have a good relationship with them. And I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to expend time and energy on focusing on these things inside my circle of influence that can help me become a better leader. These are the things that get you personal power, and these are the things that lead in to the next idea of influence. Right? And this is where we start to get into more of the idea of not being the power grabber, right? But being the individual who can now influence people, who can now say to them, or not necessarily say to them, but they can do certain things that inspire these individuals to do similar things or work as hard, right? The come early, stay late mentality that that we're all told to do, but hopefully some of our leaders eventually sometimes have, right? So the idea of influence. So let me ask you guys, what's influence? What is influence? Well, the act or power of producing an effect without apparent exertion of force or direct exercise of command, right? Goes back to the first things that we were talking about with the leverage. Right? How to lead with leverage and how to lead without leverage. I get in Artie's way every time he tries to take a picture of the board. Just walk back and forth. I want to be in your pictures, Artie. How's this? You
That's
good?
good. That's
Yeah?
good stuff.
Right here?
There you go.
All right, cool. All right, so it's the act or power of producing an effect without the apparent exertion of force. Is this easy to have? No. It's not. Why?
Takes effort.
Takes a lot of
To influence others, it takes a lot of effort. Or to persuade others, it takes a lot of effort.
I think first you need to build relationship.
Yes. Relationship and trust was another thing we talked about earlier. Relationship and trust. And that type of stuff takes time, right? That type of stuff takes time. You guys are going to leave here today with tools that you can bring back tomorrow. And if you choose to go back to the office tonight, which you're much more motivated than I am, if you choose to go back to the office tonight, right, you can take some of these things right into that environment right away, right? And that's what we want. That's the whole idea of this. However, the results might come 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a month and a half from now, okay? And it's going to take consistent and persistent effort throughout the course of that time doing these things, doing these little actions that back up actions, that back up actions, that back up actions, to continue to provide that influence. Because a lot of us are here right now. A lot of us are here because we feel that we're in the box where we can't have the influence. We're trapped, right? We have this circumstance or this set of circumstances where we can't break through, and we don't have the techniques to break through. And the reason we don't is because the environment has been built for so long that certain way. And we're in here and we just really want to do something different about it. And we can, but the first time we do something different about it, we're going to get to the edge and we're going to bounce off that circle and right back in, and then we're going to be discouraged. Well, guess what? One and done never really helped anybody. All right? Never helped anybody. So these little things, it takes time to develop influence. It takes effort. It takes persistent and consistent growth, right? So, in your own words, how is influence different than persuasion or power? How is it different than persuasion or power? What do you guys think?
I think with influence is no strings attached.
Mm-hmm.
It's, something that a person either observes or they just have that, admiration or feeling about you or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So what would you say persuasion is?
Persuasion, I would say, is something attached, like some incentive or something else that will try to get you to do something based on something else.
Got it. So if we were going to go back to one of the other definitions of, say, creating the circumstances that allow what we want to unfold naturally, that could be defined as influence, possibly, right? Yes. We're creating this environment where things that we want are unfolding naturally because we have that type of influence, positive or negative. And the idea of maybe more of a sales model could be the idea of persuasion, right? Now, that book I mentioned before, Persuasion, what that talks about is taking the persuasion out of persuasion and developing the context to be able to influence, right? That's why I think it's such a cool book. It's a business book, a leadership book, a sales book. There's a lot of great techniques in there that I think is really good, and influence is another good book too. So what about power? How is influence different than our traditional thought of power? Or how is power different than our initial thought or our initial definition of influence?
Well, power can go along with the title.
Mm-hmm.
Power with the title, where influence has to be earned.
Power goes with the title, influence has to be earned. I love that. I think that's great. I think that's fantastic. And I think that is a very, very good, very, very good definition, right? So the methods of influence. Methods of influence. Rational persuasion. How many people know this individual who's going to give you all the facts? Every single fact that you need to know why you're wrong or right. Or everything else, right? It's a way to influence. Rational persuasion. Facts, data, logical arguments. Inspirational appeals. Right? These are the individuals. These are the Steve Jobs of the world, right? They have influence through this inspiration and this vision and these appeals of this next world or this next generation or this whatever it might be. Consultation, asking others for help influencing. That happens with you, right? People come to you and they're like, what do I do here? How do I do this? Asking others for help influencing. So making others feel good about themselves. I didn't write that word. Ingratiation?
Ingratiation.
I've never heard that word before. Alright, so why don't we just make others feel good about themselves? What's a word we can think of for that? Encouragement? How's that? Personal appeal. Helping because you like them. Helping others because you like them. Give and take, exchange methods, right? Give and take. I'll help you over here, you help me over there. It develops that bond, develops that relationship. Coalition tactics, working together in a group. And then, pressure. This is where it gets to be a little bit on the negative side of influencing, like we talked about, where there is the positive and the negative, right? We need to make sure that we're not exerting undue influence, right? You can use your powers for good, you can use your powers for evil. You can use your powers to help move your department forward, and you can use your powers to help sabotage another department if you want to. All of these things are possible. So we need to make sure that we're being very, very specific and very, very careful and self-aware of what we're doing. So which influencing method would you say that you guys use the most as it comes to influence right now? There's no right or wrong. This is just where you're at. Yeah, Artie.
In my experience, I've used all of these.
Yes.
Because of the fact that it depended upon the situation, whether I was running an alliance with an automotive company with 3 groups,
Mm-hmm.
whether I was doing a project of removal, it was major,
Mm-hmm.
or I've used them all because of the fact that, to me, you have to have a good, a huge toolbox.
Yes, you do.
You have to be aware of things that you can use in different situations.
I agree.
And like I said, I've used every last one of them.
What
Trust me.
do you think is your default?
My default is people.
People?
I believe in people.
Okay.
Good and bad.
Sure.
And you appeal to people's best motives because it's there.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's buried,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to bring it out.
I agree with you. And having that type of relatable nature is very, 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 very important. And it's a great technique and a great tactic that not everybody has. Not everybody can do that and relate to individuals in that way and be able to understand what it is, what tools you have to use at any given time. My cousin recently said that good experience comes through failure, and most of that, making good decisions comes through experience, and most of that comes through making bad decisions, right? And so having the ability to be able to make good decisions is part of just going through life and learning and having that experience and being able to use all these tools when you need to use all these tools. So that's good. What is it? Anybody else have as a default that they might use when they're influencing?
I think I use a mix of inspirational and ingratiation.
Okay.
Just because I'm going to revert back to energy and how it's contagious.
Mm-hmm.
And just having a positive outlook and a positive influence will help people gravitate towards doing the right thing or doing something that is expected of them. So it's about the tact that you use behind the emotional.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. The tact you use behind the emotion, the being able to have that and develop that aura and develop that positive energy source that people want to be around. That's huge. It's a big deal, and it's something that not everybody is defaulted to, right? And so a lot of times when people have that as one of their skill sets or one of their techniques, it helps put them in more of an effective spot to be able to lead within the organization. So that's fantastic. Excellent. Thank you. So, an activity. Here's what we're going to look at. What method do you use? So we're going to look at the different influence methods here. And we are going to think of a situation where we tried to influence an individual or group and it didn't work. And we're going to talk about what method we used and why it did or did not work. So what we're going to do is we're going to break up into groups again. We're going to do 2 groups, and you guys are just going to have a little discussion. You don't need to come up and write anything this time, which is nice. But we'll just have you set at your tables there, do 2 groups real quick, and just talk for the next 5 minutes or so about examples, right? Examples of this list of methods, when you've used them, how they've worked, why they haven't worked. Maybe one time already you tried to use a specific method and you used it on the wrong person, right? Everybody's had that type of scenario if they've been in management long enough where you think is going to be the great the greatest performance review ever, and then you go in and it's a complete disaster. And so any type of those examples, positive or negative, would be perfect. So I'll have you guys get together in groups and work on that for the next few minutes, and then we'll debrief, talk some more. Awesome. Good section so far? All right, perfect. Thank you, guys. All righty. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Facebook Live here at Leading Without Authority in Detroit, Michigan, part of Davenport University's IPEX program. Absolutely awesome program. Thank you guys for jumping on. Thank you for watching. If you had any questions, put them in the comments throughout the course. This will be, I think, live on the Facebook page for a while yet. So as it is, put comments on there. I'll answer them on Facebook. I'll answer them on my Insta Live or my Insta Stories and things like that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Great group here. Great group of leaders from the city of Detroit, 2 or 3 other organizations. And it was a cool event. So thank you guys. Look forward to seeing you again. Bye now.